Immigration and refugees, immigration and the refugee, are two of the most important and multidimensional concepts of the modern era. They are phenomena that have shaped the history of humanity, affecting economies, cultures, and social structures. In this article, we will examine the various aspects of these phenomena, from their historical roots to the contemporary challenges they pose globally. Historical evolution of immigration-migration is a phenomenon as old as humanity itself. The first humans, Homo sapiens, started in Africa about 200,000 years ago and spread across the earth. This great expansion was the first major population movement in history. During the Neolithic Revolution, c. 10,000 BC, people began to settle in permanent settlements. But movements continued due to climate changes, wars, and the search for new resources. Examples from antiquity include the Indo-Europeans, who moved from the steppes of Central Asia to Europe and India around 3000 BC. The Phoenicians, who established colonies throughout the Mediterranean, such as Carthage. The Vikings, who spread from Scandinavia throughout Europe, Russia, and even North America. Migration in recent history. Migration took on new dimensions with the beginning of the Age of Great Discoveries, 15th century. Europeans began to settle in new continents, such as the Americas, Africa, and Asia. The enslavement of millions of Africans to the Americas was one of the darkest chapters in human history. In the 19th and 20th centuries, industrialization and wars led to mass migrations. For example, between 1845 and 1855, approximately 2 million Irish immigrated to the U.S. due to the potato famine. Between 1880 and 1920, over 23 million people from Europe immigrated to the U.S., mostly from Italy, Poland, and Russia. Contemporary trends in modern times, migration has become a global phenomenon. Globalization, improved means of transportation, and the communication revolution have made travel easier. However, the causes remain the same: wars, poverty, climate change, and the search for better opportunities. Important examples: immigration from Latin America to the U.S., particularly from Mexico, El Salvador, and Guatemala. Migration from Africa and the Middle East to Europe, which became massive after 2010 due to wars, for example in Syria, and economic crises. The refugee as a phenomenon, definitions and differences. Refugees are people who leave their country due to persecution, war, or violence, while migrants move mainly for economic or social reasons. The 1951 Geneva Convention defines refugees as people who are unable or unwilling to return to their country due to a well-founded fear of persecution. Historical refugee waves after World War II. Millions of people found themselves outside their borders, especially in Europe. The International Refugee Organization, IRO, and later the UNHCR were created to address this crisis. During the Cold War, many people left Eastern Bloc countries for the West. For example, after the Hungarian Revolution of 1956, 200,000 Hungarians became refugees. Contemporary challenges. The crisis in Syria since 2011 has created over 6.8 million refugees who have taken refuge mainly in Turkey, Lebanon, and Jordan. The crisis in Venezuela has led more than 5.6 million people to flee their country since 2015. Economic reasons for migration. Poverty and lack of economic opportunities are the main factors that push people to leave their countries. For example, in Nigeria, lack of work and low wages lead many young people to migrate to Europe. In Bangladesh, the need for better living conditions leads to mass migration to Saudi Arabia and other Gulf countries. Economic impact on destination countries. Immigrants often fill gaps in the labor market, particularly in sectors such as agriculture, construction, and aged care. For example, in the U.S., immigrants are a significant part of the agricultural labor force. In Germany, the arrival of refugees from Syria has helped counter an aging population. Economic dependence and development. Remittances from immigrants to countries of origin are critical for many economies. For example, Mexico receives over $40 billion a year from its immigrants. The Philippines is heavily dependent on remittances from overseas workers. Integration and social cohesion. The integration of immigrants and refugees into the societies of host countries is a complex process that requires time, resources, and political will. Challenges include language barriers. Not knowing the local language can limit access to the labor market and education. Social exclusion. Many immigrants face discrimination and racism, which prevents their full integration. Cultural differences. Different traditions and values can create tensions, but also opportunities for cultural exchange. Examples of successful integration. In Canada, the policy of multiculturalism has helped create a society that values diversity. In Sweden, education and language training programs have helped many refugees to join the labor market. Social reactions. The arrival of large numbers of immigrants and refugees can cause reactions in host countries. These reactions may be expressed through xenophobic discourse. Many politicians and the media exploit citizens' fears to promote far-right policies. Rise of populism. In many countries, such as Hungary and Italy, populist policies have strengthened due to the migration crisis. Social tensions. In some cases, tensions between locals and migrants have led to violent incidents. Cultural exchange. Despite the challenges, immigration can lead to rich cultural exchange. Examples include music and arts. Many immigrants have enriched the culture of their host countries. For example, Latin music has greatly influenced American pop culture. Gastronomy, restaurants offering dishes from various cuisines have become popular in many countries. Migration and dominion border and immigration management is one of the most contentious issues in contemporary politics. Governments face the challenge of striking a balance between protecting national security and upholding human rights. Examples include Trump's policy in the USA, the construction of the wall on the border with Mexico, and the policy of zero tolerance. The European Union, the 2016 EU-Turkey deal, which aimed to limit the flow of refugees to Europe. International law and refugees. International law provides a framework for the protection of refugees. The 1951 Geneva Convention and the 1967 Protocol are the main legal sources. However, many countries do not comply with their obligations. Examples include the situation in the Mediterranean. Many countries have restricted rescue operations, resulting in an increase in the number of victims. The Myanmar crisis. Myanmar's expulsion of the Rohingya has drawn international condemnation, but the country refuses to admit responsibility. European policies. Europe faced a severe refugee crisis in 2015, when over 1 million people arrived on its shores. The EU's reaction was mixed. Germany adopted a welcoming policy, accepting over 1 million refugees. Hungary opposed any attempt to redistribute the refugees, building fences along its borders. Ethical background. Protecting refugees is a moral obligation based on the principles of humanity and solidarity. Countries have a responsibility to offer shelter to people at risk. However, many times policies deviate from these principles. Humanitarian organizations, NGOs, play a critical role in ensuring human rights. Examples include UNHCR, the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, which provides assistance to millions of people. Doctors Without Borders, MSF, an organization that provides medical assistance to refugees and other vulnerable groups. The psychological dimension. Refugees and immigrants face serious psychological problems such as PTSD, depression, and anxiety. Psychological support is essential for their recovery. Climate change and migration. Climate change is expected to become one of the main drivers of migration in the future. Climate refugees are people who flee their countries due to environmental changes such as drought, floods, and rising sea levels. Examples include Bangladesh, millions at risk of displacement due to rising sea levels. The Sahel. Desertification is forcing many people to leave their rural areas. Environmental effects. Migration can have significant environmental impacts, particularly in host countries. Population growth can lead to an overload of resources such as water and energy. Predictions for the future migration is expected to continue to be a major issue in the 21st century. Factors that will affect it include climate change. More people will be forced to move due to environmental changes. Technology, automation, and artificial intelligence can change the needs of the labor market. Political proposals tackling migration requires integrated strategies that take into account both causes and effects. These include investments in countries of origin. Improving economic conditions can reduce the need for migration. International cooperation. Cooperation between countries is essential for managing migration. Migration and refugees are complex issues that require a balanced approach. Only through cooperation, understanding, and respect for human rights can we face the challenges and take advantage of the opportunities these phenomena offer.